What's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again from metaltrenches.com. As always, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoy it, comment, share it, hop down to the description. But it's time for another ranking list, and the topic today is Norwegian symphonic black metal band Dimmu Borgir. And we're going to kind of skip past for Untitled. We're going to stick to sort of the core discography here, only full lengths as well. And so we have to start with 1996's Stormblast, which is fine for an early black metal album. There's nothing particularly special about it. I don't feel like it stands out in sort of the pantheon of early second wave black metal releases that were coming out around the same time. I mean, it has to go toe to toe with like Emperor, so kind of enough said on that one. Do I listen to like songs from this album regularly? Not really. If I'm in a Dimmu Borgir mood, it's the last thing I'm thinking about. So also the the keyboardist at the time like jacked tracks from the video game Agony, which is kind of a dick move. And so, speaking of which, they later on did this completely reimagined version of Stormblast, which was called Stormblast MMV. And this came out in 2005, and this one is fantastic. Like, as far as reimagining and re-recording albums go, this is some top-notch stuff. Like, they brought that early material into their later era production and sense of grandiosity, and really just made it something magnificent. So I think that version of it deserves to be around B tier, honestly, because I will re-listen to that one quite frequently. But getting back into the core discography, we have to go to 1997 with Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, and this was where people started to take notice of the band. This was them like just starting to turn some heads, and there's some really quality material here. It's got this great gothic atmosphere that is just unmatched by really any other album. There's some other kind of cradle albums that maybe kind of touch on this similar vibe, but that opening with Morning Place is just absolutely stunning. And even though this was an album that took me a little bit longer to really get into, because I kind of came into them a little bit later in their discography, it deserves a place pretty high up, but I feel like B tier is pretty good. Moving right along, we have to go to 1998 with Spiritual Black Dimensions, and if Enthroned Darkness Triumphant was where they just started to turn some heads, this is where they really cemented themselves as a band to be reckoned with. Like, they were not going anywhere, and this album is an absolute classic. Lots of great songs on here: Reptile, Behind the Curtains of Night, Dreamside, Dominions, United in Unhallowed Grace. I could listen to this thing over and over again. It was one of the first albums that I bought from the band, and I just still, to this day, enjoy the heck out of it. I feel like everything Enthroned does, Spiritual Black Dimensions does better, and it's just a huge step forward for them and for the genre, and I feel like just a big, very important album for kind of extreme symphonic releases. All right, then we go to 2001 with Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia. I love their album titles, by the way. They're just so kind of like ridiculous. This album is also really good. It's not quite as good as Spiritual Black Dimensions, but there's some things I actually like better about it in terms of some of the songwriting, the production. It's not quite as consistent, but again, lots of great tracks on here. Hybrid Stigmata, The Apostasy, Puritania, Symposium. I'm struggling with where exactly I want to put this. I think ultimately I still want to kind of put it at a B. Maybe an A. I might have to think about that a little bit more, but quality album, more classic album art. I see whoever picked this whoever made this particular tier list, it wasn't me. They chose the censored version, which YouTube will probably thank me for. I didn't even think about that. But anyways, I digress. Let's keep moving forward. And now we really get into the meat of it with 2003's Death Cult Armageddon. And it has to be S tier. There's no two ways around it. I would be amazed to hear in the comments from people who don't think that this belongs at S tier. This was clearly the album that just like everyone knew about. Like, even non-metalheads knew about this album, or at least they had seen the music video, Progenies of the Great Apocalypse. It's just such a classic, one of the best songs they've ever written, and goddamn, those operatic vocals on that track. ICS Vortex, you will be greatly missed. I was so sad when he was no longer in the band, because, man, he just brought something so crucial to their formula, and the interplay between him and Shagrith is just irreplaceable. Absolutely irreplaceable. And then you've got Lepers Among Us, Vreedsbird, and countless others. This was the album that truly made me a fan, and I bought this and Spiritual Black Dimensions probably around the same time, and never looked back from there. Absolutely amazing album, and regardless of... I know there's a lot of haters for this band too, but I feel like you have to respect, at bare minimum, Death Cult Armageddon. And that really was kind of their peak, so from there, I still enjoy them, but this is where things started to kind of make a shift. 2007, we got In Sorte Diaboli, which I think is a good album. It's a concept album, which is something I kind of tend to have mixed feelings about, just because it kind of puts you in a box, and that can make the overall, just the style of the album start to suffer. And I think there's some issues there, but still some really solid tracks. The Serpentine Offering, The Chosen Legacy. There's some really just dark, evil stuff, as alluded to on the album art, of course, and just the overall concept of, I believe it's about, like, basically this religious person being turned to Satan, more or less, and becoming a real apostasy, or something along those lines. I could be totally screwing that up. But in any case, it's an enjoyable album. I really like it. I think ultimately, the more I think about this, I'm going to put Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia. I always have to like double check on getting that title right. So there's so many syllables there. I want to put that at an A, because I still kind of want to put this around a B. Some people might put it as C, but yeah, I'm going to kind of keep puzzling over this as I go along. And then from there, we got Abrahadabra in 2010. So it's another album that a lot of people were kind of upset about. Like, I've seen a lot of people complain about it. I really like Gateways. There are a lot of people like joking about like how they're wearing white in the video instead of black, and it's like not black metal enough. I thought that video was great. I love the song. I love the guest vocals on there, even though some people complained about it. I thought it added like this extra theatrical quality to it. And so I don't know. I enjoy it. It's not super consistent. Born Treacherous is also really good. I guess if I'm really thinking of the full scope of the discography, maybe it's fair to do this, but I enjoy those albums. I think they're worth coming back to. In fact, I really kind of need to come around and give them another listen, because it has been probably a couple years now. All right, and then we get to present day with Aeonian. And this one, I got to give it at least a B. Like, I had very low expectations going into this one. I'm still kind of bummed about sort of the post-ICS Vortex era of Dimmu Borgir. It's just not quite the same. And I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with it. But what was kind of cool about it is I feel like they sort of backtracked to more the sound of these albums, kind of their earlier material. There's a lot of Enthroned Darkness and Spiritual Black Dimensions in this album's sound. I feel like they kind of scaled back a lot of the more grandiose and sort of classical orchestration elements, and they just went back to basics with more just sort of classic black metal, kind of raw, simple keyboard, and it worked. It worked really well. I think it paid off. There's a lot of really good songs on this album. The Unveiling, Council of Wolves and Snakes, Lightbringer, I Am Sovereign, Archaic Correspondence. They did a damn fine job, and I listened to it over and over again, and I bought it too. I actually have all these albums right next to me on my shelf right now, and I do not regret picking that up. It still kind of stuck with me, and I kept coming back to it. So kudos to them for doing a really good job even so late in their career. So as far as Dimmu Borgir goes, I think that's how it sort of plays out for me, more or less. I liked how it came out to this nice, very pleasing aesthetic of this like little sort of sideways triangle. But again, there's, aside from Stormblast and For All Tid, which I completely left out here, I like all their albums, and for all the hate and all the kind of memeing around them, I still think that they're a fantastic band, and there's a reason why they became so big and so popular. They did it really well. They had great music, great branding. They got on a good label, and they do damn fine work. And so yeah, that's my thoughts on Dimmu Borgir. And thank you as always for watching. Once again, please do subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this, like the video, go down to the description, follow us on social media, sign up for the mailing list, and please become a supporter. $1 a month makes a huge difference. So Subscribestar or Patreon, it doesn't matter. Really appreciate it. Thank you in advance. But for now, this is Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.